Well, I called up to my friend Todd and said, hey, grab the net and help me land this fish. And I did not want to lose it. I wanted to get that great snapshot, of the fish. And when I looked up, all I could see was her chasing it by the tail with the net to try to get it in the net. And I was horrified. I'm like, no.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your fearless host, Angie Scott.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. On this week's episode, I'm speaking with a trout fly fishing guide who operates her guide service out on the Caney Fork River, which is just east of Nashville. Her name's Susan Thrasher, and her guide service is called Southern Brookies. She also has vintage campers available that people can stay in. They're super cute, so I highly recommend checking out her website, southernbrookies.com, and that way you can go see what I'm talking about for yourself. What's extra exciting is the timing of this episode. I've been wanting to have Susan on the show for some time. The original plan was I was going to go over to Southern Brookies, which isn't that far because I'm in Nashville, and interview her in person. However, COVID kind of threw a monkey wrench in those plans, so instead we did the interview over the phone. But why is the timing so great? Because just a week ago, Susan's new book was released. It's called Thrasher's Fly Fishing Guide, an essential handbook for all skill levels. Other than the fact that the book was written by Susan, who has a wealth of knowledge on fly fishing, what makes this book so unique is she's teaching people how to fly fish by telling great stories throughout the book. So it's instructional, entertaining, and memorable all at the same time. I highly recommend heading on over to Amazon to order a copy for yourself. There's a link in the show notes for this episode, which you can find by going to thewomanangler.com/136. Susan has an interesting story as well as in regards to how she got into fly fishing in the first place, so I think you're really going to enjoy our conversation. So here we go. Wise, this is really exciting because you have a book that's coming out tomorrow as we're recording this conversation. So when this episode comes out next week, it will already be out and available. But if you could just tell everybody a little bit about your book, what's it called, what's it all about?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, writing a book, that was something that was never, ever in my life goal plan, but it just so happened to come about, in a very interesting way. And so here I am with a book that's about to be on the shelves June 9th, but it's Thrasher's Fly Fishing Guide. And, when I very first started or was asked to write one, I thought, there's so many really great books that are already out there. What in the world could I possibly add, to everything else that's already been written? Mm-hmm. And the more I got to thinking about it, and at least the way that it helps me in learning, is to try to learn through like memory aids. And if there's a story related to something that I'm trying to learn that I can kind of, draw upon later, then it seems to be ingrained in my memory that way. Mm-hmm. So that's the approach that I took with the book, in that each chapter, whether it's on, understanding fly line design or understanding a certain fly fishing technique, from dry fly fishing to streamer fishing to nymph fishing, in each one of those chapters, I've tried to put an introductory story associated with that particular chapter. Mm-hmm. And that way, as people, or whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, I think you'll pull some nuggets of information out of the book. But as they go back and, try to remember something about, a certain area of fly fishing, then that story, I believe, is going to just enhance it a little bit, make it a little more entertaining, when you're learning it. And then also will help just to stick in your memory to try to remember it later. So anyway, that's the approach that I took. Yeah. And I think people will enjoy it. Something a little different.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, people love stories. So, anytime we're doing a podcast episode, if somebody's got a story or unique, memory from their past, I always love to have people share that because I think listeners just love. Are there any like specific examples you'd be willing to pull from the book?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, let's see. We did. There's one in particular. I think it's kind of funny. This was in the playing and landing fish chapter, and I had a friend of mine that went with me. Her name's Carol Topping, Top for short, and we had gone out to fish on the Ruby River out in Montana. And I was, I was pretty new into my fly fishing career. And anyway, Top was looking for some rocks up on the bank, and I hooked into a beautiful brown trout. I was so excited. This was one of the larger fish that I had caught on this particular trip, and I had left my net up on the bank. And when you net a fish, you really should net it head first, and and just slide it right into the net. Well, I called up to my friend Todd and I said, "Hey, grab the net and help me land this fish." And I did not want to lose it. I wanted to get that great snapshot, of the fish.
Yeah.
And when I looked up, all I could see was her chasing it by the tail with the net, trying to get it in the net. And I terrified. I'm like, no. And then before I could even, say anything else, the fish broke off, and then that was the end of that. And it was kind of a tense moment for us. But now we look back and just laugh about it, that happened. But, those are the kind of stories that I'm certain that if you're just into fly fishing and you're getting ready to net the fish, remembering that story, you are not going to try to net them by the tail. So those are the kind of things that I try to relate anyway.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I love that approach. So we'll look forward to getting that book. So is it available just online, or how are you going about getting that out there?
Well, the publisher's been really terrific. Keen Publishing is the group that's taken this on, and it is available on Amazon, but it's at Walmart and Target and
great.
Books A Million and Barnes and Noble and a number of different bookstores. Parnassus is a local bookstore in Nashville that will be carrying it, and the different fly shops around town will also have it. So anyway, if you can't get it in person somewhere, then definitely you can get it online. And the publisher is also going to make signed copies available here probably in the next month. If folks want a signed copy or a personalized. If you want it personalized, then maybe you can come out to Southern Brookies and take a class. And that's the other thing is the classes that I teach, whether it's a beginner, intermediate, or advanced class, also includes a copy of the book, and which will be, I think, is going to be a really great thing. I know as an instructor, it's great because I have been either just sending an email to students and giving them a listing of gear that they need to purchase, or I always have people saying, what are some of your favorite flies? Can you write those down? Or, what's a rod that would be really good for me as a beginner? And all of that information now is in the book.
Okay.
And I can just reference, turn to page 45 and all that information you need's right there.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
So that's going to be good, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, great. Well, so you mentioned, that you never in your life imagined that you would ever write a book. But your life's very interesting. I mean, your story, you started out in a career in engineering and then picked up a fly rod. I guess, I think I read it was like 1998. Yes. And talk about that experience, like your first time and how that was so life-changing for you.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, I've been fishing, just traditional fishing, for as long as I can remember. In fact, my earliest childhood memories, I was fishing with my dad. But it wasn't until, I would say, in the late, maybe 98, I went fishing for the first time, fly fishing for the first time my dad had a friend that wanted to take us out on the South Holston River back in East Tennessee. So we went out, and he gave me a quick little lesson. And anyway, somehow I managed to catch trout that day.
Nice.
And it was spectacular. I mean, it's just all the movement of the fish. I could feel every movement and wiggle of their tail. But when I brought it in, I just thought, this is amazing. It's different than anything I'd ever tried before. It was a little harder for me anyway, learning about the cast. But I fell in love with it, and I wanted to learn every aspect of it. I wanted to understand about the flies, about the castings, about just everything there was, reading the water. And it just got so exciting for me, every new element that I started to learn, that I was so passionate about the sport. And I used to be a tennis player, volleyball. I played in college, and a golfer. And I gave all of that up when I started fly fishing, because any spare moment, that's what I wanted to be doing. And so, I was in civil engineering, and had been with this company for a long 26 years, actually. And I had just ended a project. And back in, I guess, 2004, I had started Southern Brookies more on a part-time basis. So I would be working, our office was based in Manhattan. So I would be working in New York for a week, and then come back for the weekend to Nashville and have a guide trip booked, and then fly right back to New York. So it was more of a part-time business for me while I was still, had my main career. But I thought, eventually I'd like to do this on a full-time basis. And it would scare me a little bit when I would think about giving up the career and the, and the biweekly paycheck that you always knew was going to be coming in. But I don't know, there was just such a drive and a passion for wanting to share this experience with other people, that I thought, I'm just going to set a plan in place and do it. And so I found a little piece of property on the Caney Fork River, and built the school, and just little by little started pulling all of my gear together, waders for clients, and boots, and all the fly rods and things I would need for a school. And I got my drift boat. And so just anyway, started pulling it all together. And then I ended a project. This was 5 years ago, actually. And I just remember sitting there thinking, this would be perfect timing now. If this project is over, it's ended on a successful note, and I could put in my notice now, and, give as much time as needed to walk out gracefully away from a company that had treated me so well. And that's exactly what I did. And so it was actually almost 5 years ago to the day.
Wow.
that I left that company. And Parsons Brinkerhoff was the name of the business. And again, I had a wonderful career, and so many of the things that I learned and really was able to take some of those skills from my engineering. I have put them right into the business, from whether it was developing a budget, to setting up a PowerPoint presentation, to public speaking, because I talk a lot to different fly fishing clubs. But so many of the things that I actually did, on a management level, there with the company, I've really been able to transition right into the business. And so it's really worked out well.
Yeah. So
no regrets.
Kind of one of those meant to be things, when you look back, and it's fun or neat to see how everything kind of leads to something else. Like, I'm kind of in that position myself right now, where I worked in the music industry for a lot of years. And it's just kind of funny how some of that, looking back, just plays right into my passion for boating and fishing and everything that I'm doing now. And things that you wouldn't think relate at all. And then it's like, oh,
it's just interconnected. I know, it's just so amazing.
Yeah. Yep. So Southern Brookies, and you're located out in the Caney Fork. That's actually the first.
From billion-dollar ad budgets and arena naming rights to tens of thousands of retail locations, big wireless providers spend big to appear like they're your only option. How do they afford it all? That big bill you get at the end of every month. Mint Mobile had a different idea. Instead of brick and mortar overhead, Mint Mobile is online only. What does that mean for you? A whole lot of savings, because wireless plans from Mint Mobile start at just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. You'll save enough that you can get a brand new rod and reel for the upcoming season. For anyone who just hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan, and you can even keep your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. By going online only and eliminating traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes significant savings on to you. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That's mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
Time I ever experienced casting a fly rod, I took a lesson out on the Caney Fork. So talk a little bit about that area, and why you decided to base it in that part of Tennessee.
Sure. Okay, sure. Well, when I first moved to Nashville, it was actually the first tailwater, or the river, that I had fished on, and I just fell in love with it. It's about an hour outside east of Nashville, and just down below Center Hill Dam. And I just thought it was a beautiful location. There are a number of public access points, along the river. And so one of the things that I thought would be a good thing that I could, as an instructor, to show new people getting into fly fishing is just different points along the river, where they could actually fish on their own. People can't afford to have a guide every single time that they go out to fish. And to me, as a guide and instructor, I look at my job as, helping people to get to a point where they can fish on their own successfully. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things I like to do out here is to, show people that, especially if we're floating or even if we're wade fishing, to tell them about, okay, you have, 2 different access points here at the dam that you easily can get in and be able to fish. And I show them how, there's shallow areas of the water where you can fish for almost a mile and a half, downstream to get away from the crowds. And then the access points at Happy Hollow and at Betty's Island, and then, different locations where you can actually float, with a kayak or any other kind of a fishing vessel, just to reach additional points along the Caney Fork. And, it's just easy access off the interstate to find the river. It's not that far outside of Nashville. You're pretty close in to Cookeville, so there's people from the Cookeville area that come in quite a bit. And I don't know, just the selection of the place, it was one of those things, kind of like you've said a couple of times on the program, it was just meant to be. Mm-hmm. So, when I floated by on a kayak, this was back in 2010, I floated by and saw a big auction sign in the farm field, and I thought, this could be it. So I came to the auction and bid on a piece of the property, and here I sit now with 10 acres and a school and a casting pond. And yes, I'm feeling very blessed. Every morning I look out at the river and just feeling so fortunate to be sitting right here.
Yeah. And you also have, I saw on the website, like little kind of vintage campers if people wanted to stay overnight or make a kind of a trip out of it.
Yes, I do. I have a couple vintage campers that if people wanted to come and take a casting class and then maybe go on a guided trip the next day, it's just a neat setting. I fix some, my specialty is grilled pork chops. So I have pork chops and baked potatoes and some salad, and we sit around the campfire. And yeah, it's just kind of nice after a long day of either a class or fishing, just to be able to relax and hang out with the little campers and get up for a nice breakfast the next morning. And there's nothing like being out in this kind of a setting, especially when you walk down and see the river flowing, and a lot of times the fog that comes in the mornings along the river. It's absolutely beautiful. And of course, I always add in some of my coffee for the folks that stay here in the mornings. I love coffee, and I've gotten to where I love roasting my own. And so you get a special Southern Brookies blend whenever you come and hang out. So.
Awesome. Well, I hope I'm not that far away. I hope we were planning on doing this interview in person. I would travel out there and we would do a podcast interview, but the whole COVID thing and, everything's just kind of messed up right now, but I definitely want to get out there sometime soon and just see it all in person. It sounds amazing. So.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to have you. You aren't too far. So
yeah, exactly.
You need to pop over anytime.
Yeah. And so we are in Nashville, so Music City. And one of the things, we've talked about, you actually gave some lessons to someone who was rather famous in the music industry, but you didn't realize it at the time that you gave her lessons. And I've been talking with her manager now about having her come on the show. It's just a matter of scheduling. It's definitely going to happen at some point. But again, the COVID thing has just kind of messed everything up right now. But, talk a little bit about, so I'm talking about Brittany Howard from Alabama Shakes, who I hope to have on the show at some point, but you actually gave her lessons.
Oh, yep. My dear, dear friend and neighbor, Bucky Baxter, who just recently passed away. I miss him just terribly. But he had been talking to Brittany, a friend of Brittany, and she had said that she would like to learn to fly fish. And he said, well, you got to get a lesson with Susan. So anyway, we connected by phone and met over in Shelby Park, actually, in East Nashville. And I gave her first casting lesson. She caught a couple little brim and actually picked it up very, very quickly. And then we had a trip out on the Elk River together, and she caught some trout out on the Elk. And then we've gone out on the Caney Fork. And then there was a summer when she wasn't that busy. I think she was writing some music, but I was going on some exploration trips of some creeks and some different places where I could take clients. And I called Brittany a few times and just said, hey, you want to hang out and come explore with me? And she jumped at the chance to do it. So we spent quite a bit of time fishing together, and her fly fishing really started to improve. And she's actually an excellent caster, and I know she jumped right in with both feet into fly fishing. She has several fly rods now, and she's really, really come along and done a great job. And she loves my pork chops. In fact, she'll send a text every now and then saying something about the pork chops. But she's a terrific fly fisherman, no doubt.
That's great. And you told me a story that, you didn't realize that she was a big time musician. She had mentioned something about the Grammys, and
yeah. Well, I don't follow that music that closely, and I think I'd heard one song maybe. But anyway, we had been talking. This is after several times of us being out fishing, and she made a comment about how music had really opened up doors and allowed her to do so much, and she was able to take her dad to the Grammys. And I'm like, oh wow, you went to the Grammys? And she said, yeah, we won several. I'm like, oh, that's great.
And there you go.
Anyway, but I have always thought of Brittany more as my fishing buddy. In fact, my parents, I remember one time I said that I was taking her out on a trip and had explained, who she was. This was after, I learned more about how significant she was in the music industry.
Mhm.
And they're like, wow, are you nervous? And I'm like, I'm the famous one. What are you talking about?
That's right.
Of course, I have no ego, you know.
Right. That's funny. I love that. So you also lead a group here in Nashville called Music City Fly Girls. When did that start? And it's a pretty big group, right?
Yeah, it didn't start out that way, but a good friend of mine who also passed away several years ago, and I miss her dearly, and she would absolutely love listening to this podcast, I know. But Nikki Mitchell and I started the Music City Fly Girls back in 2007. We had been on a guided float trip together and just started talking about how neat it would be to have an all-women's group. We both had been members of, co-ed clubs, which, had been, they were wonderful, but we thought it was just a different dynamic to have an all-women's club that could travel together. Just logistically, it would make sense to do that. So anyway, we started back October 15th, 2007 was our very first meeting. And we had 15 members, or 15 potential members, that showed up for that very first club meeting, and we just continued to grow from there. We have monthly meetings, or we did have until the tornado hit Boombas. That's where we had our meeting location, and then COVID came, so we've taken a break from our meetings, but we have trips planned throughout the year, different outings that we do. In fact, we're getting ready to go to Wyoming at the middle of August, and there's over 30 people going to fish on the Shoshone River there in Wyoming. We'll be out for a week. Last year we went to Canada. We fished in Montana. We fished in the High Sierras there in California and in Colorado. And we've had some really terrific trips that we've taken as a group together. But we've grown from that 15 little member meeting that first night. We're up to 70 members now, and have just a great time together. And yeah, it's been that's been a real experience, and one that I am just super proud of, because, once you join the Fly Girls, you might feel like a newbie just joining in, and you immediately feel like part of the family, soon after you become part of the group. Everybody is just is very kind and welcoming, and I mean, we have all different personality types, but everyone has agreed, I guess, as a group, that one of the things we won't have in the club is drama. Mm-hmm. And somehow, I don't know how we've done it, but since 2007, we've been able to keep the drama out of the club, and nice. It makes for a really, really nice time, just as a group. Yeah. So, yep, that's the Music City Fly Girls.
That's great. Well, I'll put links to Southern Brookies, your new book, Music City Fly Girls, all those things in the show notes for this episode, so people can go check that out and follow along. And if they're in the Nashville area, hopefully they can maybe get a meeting whenever you guys get that back up and going again, hopefully. And
yes.
This year's just been so crazy with Nashville got hit by the tornado. Then we went straight into the COVID pandemic and sheltering in place and all of that. So it's been, and then now we've got all the other things that are going on with our country.
I know,
it's just been the craziest year. But fishing, that's, I don't know if it's been the same way with fly fishing out on the Caney Fork, but I know on the lakes here, I've never seen so many people out on the weekends, especially. Have you noticed? Is it the same way with like? Oh,
yes, okay. Yes, because there is an element to. There's a peacefulness, when you get out in nature, and it just tends to, for me anyway, the river, it just tends to kind of wash away some of that stress and that anxiousness that you're feeling. And so I think others are starting to kind of key in on that. Right. That's a good stress reliever for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's kind of a good and a bad thing. One, I mean, we love encouraging people to get out there and, people are discovering that peacefulness. But then, our waterways are getting more crowded. So
right.
It's kind of like, good and bad in ways, but, hopefully people are being responsible and, keeping, trash and things like that. That's one thing I've seen an increase of, unfortunately, out here.
Yeah.
But,
I know. I have too. And, it doesn't take much just to pick up that trash. Or if you see some that somebody else has left, just pick it up and take it to the trash can. That's the surprising thing to me is I see trash and it's right near the trash can, when it's just a few feet away. So, but you were saying about being responsible and make sure you wear those life jackets. I can't tell you the number of people sitting on my back deck that I see floating down the Caney Fork, with under 2 generators, which is 10,000 CFS, a big flow and no life jackets on. And all it takes is one flip of the kayak. And there's already been one person that drowned out here this year and several that have had to be rescued. So having those life jackets on that's a big thing out here that people need to remember.
Definitely. We just did an interview with Mustang Survival, had a episode with them talking about the importance of wearing your PFD, making sure you've got the properly fitting one, that it's in good condition and all those things. So definitely. Unfortunately, because it's been so busy this year, there's already been more fatalities on the water than there was all of last year. So,
oh wow, I didn't realize that. That's really something.
In Tennessee, anyway. So definitely want to get the word out about that. So, well, I sure appreciate, having you on the show, and, timing wise kind of worked out good. I wish we could have done it in person, but I'll definitely try to get out that way. Freedom Boat Club has a location there on Center Hill. So I'll be definitely traveling that way more often in the near future. So,
excellent.
Yeah. So, well, thanks again. I feel like we could talk.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Talk for hours.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. Well, we'll just have to. We'll have to make that happen.
Exactly. Yep. Hey, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of The Woman Angler and Adventure. Don't forget to go check out those show notes at thewomanangler.com/136. You'll find links to Southern Brookies, Susan's new book, as well as the Music City Flag Girls group. All things you should go check out. And hey, if you like what we're doing over here, leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. If you have any questions about how to do that, just shoot me an email, Angie@thewomanangler.com, and I'll help you figure that out. Thanks for listening to the show. Really appreciate it. See you next time.